I've not touched my reef tank in about 4 weeks and it may have been a big mistake. Today we're going to get this tank back on top form and I'll explain what I did wrong. Let's go. Whilst I clean up, I'll give you a bit of a backstory, so if you're new to the channel you know what I've been up to. About 4 weeks ago I decided I was going to leave my tank alone and do its own thing. No cleaning of the glass and no putting my hands in the tank unless absolutely necessary. There's two reasons behind it. One, I wanted to break the habit of constantly putting my hand in this tank. On average, I'm putting my hand in this tank pretty much every other day. Number of reasons. My Timor wrasse likes to eat my snails, so I remove the snail shells. I frag my corals. I move stuff around, and I just wanted to break the habit of doing that. The second reason was I wanted to see what would happen if I took myself out of the equation. Would I get more growth? Would I get more colour? Or would the tank run wild and eventually crash? Turns out the latter wasn't that far from what happened. I do want to point out that I've been feeding the fish, I've been topping up the ATO reservoir, and I am dosing on this tank, so nothing crazy should really happen. I did a 20% water change the day I started my experiment, and I planned on doing another 2 weeks in, but I decided against it. I kind of thought it was defeated the point of what I was doing, so I didn't do that water change. 2 weeks in, I did an update and things were going fine. The glass was a bit of a mess, nothing crazy, all the corals looked okay. I did notice a 5% uptake in Triton Core 7, so things were actually doing a little bit better than they were before. I think taking my hands out of the equation, the corals seemed a little bit happier, less contaminants going in there from my grubby digits, and overall, yeah, seemed like it was doing okay. I did get a few questions as to why I wasn't cleaning the glass and why I wasn't just stopping putting my hands in, and honestly, that's probably what I should have done. The problem is I know what I'm like. I'd clean the glass, I'd see something that I wasn't 100% happy with, and I'd go straight in. I literally have no self-control. So leaving the glass alone was the only way of keeping my hands out. In hindsight, I should have kept up with the regular cleaning and just gone hands-free. I have absolutely no doubt that if I'd have done that, I would have seen much better results. But hey, every day is a school day in reefing. The same week I did some water tests. PO4 had increased, that's what I was aiming for. I'd reduced my lanthanum chloride dosing in the hope to increase phosphates, as some of my acros were looking a bit pale. Nitrates had dipped, but nothing crazy. I think they were sitting at about 5 parts per million. The following weekend, the glass had gotten a little bit crazy. There was a thick layer of algae, and also what looked like turf algae was starting to develop on the glass. I planned on doing some water tests, but I didn't get round to it. I barely looked at the tank all weekend, and before I knew it was Monday. Unfortunately, I don't get to see that tank all that much in the week. I leave for work in the mornings and the lights are turning on, and when I get home there's only about an hour of the light schedule left, so I barely see the tank in the week. Fast forward to this weekend and we are here. I ran some tests this morning and nitrates have completely bottomed out. I wasn't sure if my Red Sea test kit was reading wrong, so I actually went out and bought myself a Nano Nitrate Checker, and yep, it's reading 0. PO4, phosphates, they're fine, they're 0.05, which is fine. I do plan on increasing the phosphates to about 0.08, but I'm going to work on my nitrates because 0 nitrates is not great. Most of my corals look fine, but there are a few that aren't looking so hot. The 2 red planets, the Pikachu, and there's a Millipora just down here. All are looking quite pale. They're not stripping, they are just looking pretty stressed out. Turns out not cleaning the glass was a very bad choice. The algae that's growing all over the glass has sucked up my nitrates and bottomed them out. Now the corals aren't getting the nutrients they require, hence they're looking stressed and they're bleaching. So what's the plan? As you can see, I've removed all of the algae. I've removed it from the wave makers, the glass. There was a fair amount on the random flow generators, and I've removed any visible algae. In theory, I shouldn't have to do anything else. With all the algae removed, that's what was sucking up the nitrates, so it's only now the corals that are taking up the nutrients. Now I have the Nano Nitrate Checker, I can test daily or every other day, and hopefully I'll see a nitrate result that's trending up. If I don't, I'll turn the skimmer off and open the valve on the Clarity, but I don't like to turn my skimmer off. The problem is, if you turn your skimmer off, I see a massive dip in pH. So I'm thinking I might turn the skimmer down so it's not really skimming anything out of the tank. I can also open up the little valve on the Clarity to remove some of the mechanical filtration. If I open that valve up, some of the water passes through the Clarity and doesn't get filtered through the roller mat. That's an option. Another thing I can do is remove some of the ceramic media from the sump. I'm not going to do it just yet. I'm hoping that the other things that I've implemented should increase nutrients, but if all else fails, I can always remove some of that media and have less biological filtration. I've removed the algae, which is what's sucking up the nutrients, so hopefully I should see a decent increase in nitrates over the next few days. But I've got a few plan A, plan B and plan C in place just in case I don't see an increase in nitrates. The last thing I want to do is bottom out nutrients and then get dinoflagellates. That would be an absolute nightmare. So found the issue, sorting the issue out, and hopefully we can move forward from this. Now that I've got the nitrate checker, I can actually test daily. It doesn't take that long at all, 7 or 8 minutes it takes. It's nothing like the Red Sea test kit where you've got to swirl some vials. It's pretty simple to do. So I'm going to test daily on nitrates. I'm also going to test daily on phosphates as well. Whilst the algae was growing, I did have a level of phosphates that I was really happy with, 0.05 it was sitting at. I think now that I've removed the algae, I'm going to see an increase in phosphates as well. So I'm going to keep my eye on that and make sure it doesn't increase over 0.08, which is the level that I want to sit my tank at. I also popped over to my LFS and picked up some Red Sea AB+. Whilst nitrates are very low, this will help feed the corals until the point that my nutrients are back up and corals are no longer starved. I've just got to remember to actually dose this daily. I know what I'm like, I'm probably going to forget, but I'm keeping a close eye on this tank anyway, so hopefully I shouldn't forget. Other than the select few corals, the tank actually looks great. I'm not sure if it's because I've not seen the tank properly in a few weeks, but I do feel like I'm getting a lot more growth. The Pikachu I've had for over a year and it's done nothing but base out, and it's finally started to shoot out some branches. That's possibly down to higher than normal phosphate levels. It could be because I've kept my hands out of the tank, or it could just be finally settled. Who knows? The red planet up front has grown so much I can barely get my flipper cleaner between it and the glass, and the millipora down here has grown a ton since I last saw it. You may also notice that I finally placed the torches back in the torch garden. This New York Nix is looking incredible, and it's actually starting to split. I do plan on removing the plug that it's sitting on, but for now I'm just glad to get it off that frag rack up the front. The only torch that I haven't placed is the one that's down here. To be honest, it's not looked great for a few months, and I think it's really struggling with any more light than what's provided on the sandbed. It hasn't fully extended since I moved it from the bottom left side, and I think it should be much happier here, but I'm going to keep my eye on it. I am considering popping it over to the Nano tank because power levels in that tank are a lot lower and nutrients are also a little bit higher, and also flow isn't so intense in that tank as well, but we're going to leave it here for now and see how we get on. The sandbed has got a few corals that are waiting to either be fragged up or mounted on frag plugs. Once I've done that, the sandbed should be nice and clear. Other than that, the tank is pretty much back on top form. I do need to start seeing some nitrates, and hopefully that will bring a bit more colour in these acros, and then I will be happy. I'm going to be making a big effort to keep my hands out of this tank, and I will not be leaving this tank to get out of control anytime soon. The glass is going to be cleaned on a regular basis, probably every 2-3 days, back to my usual routine, but I'm not going to be putting my hands in. So I think that'll pretty much wrap it up for this week's video. I'll keep you posted on the community tab as to how the tank is doing. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please do like, please do subscribe, and I shall catch you next week, guys.